Get everything set up here. What's up, Facebook? What's up, Instagram? It's good to be back. Great to be back in action. I know that I was gone for 2 weeks, but I was truly under the weather, and so I'm back, feeling a lot better, probably better than I have in a long time. So as promised, I'd go live. Let's get the volume up, make sure the volume's up. So there we go. So I've been getting a lot of questions. Lots and lots and lots of comments. So between messages and comments, I've made notes. Used to, I didn't make notes because I can just remember right off the top of the dome. But made some notes where I can stay on track today because of all the questions that I've received and also the comments I've received, which are all pretty much credible questions. The biggest thing and concern that I have, and it's not that what I think matters, but then again, because our nation functions a certain way via the government and the military, the concern is that so many people are not learning what you're supposed to be learning throughout this process. And it's a reason of concern for the fact that how do we sustain and maintain what we just went through? So either you love the past, which the past would be before 2016, either you love the swamp and you love drama and you love all this surface level nonsense bullcrap, or you want to cultivate your life to where you know how the government's supposed to work, the state governments are supposed to work, the military is doing what they're doing, law enforcement's doing what they're doing, and you know how to be a part of that, but then also how you free up time in your life where you give yourself more time with your significant others, your children, your grandchildren. And then if you don't have any of that and you are a happy and content person and you love to do whatever it is you're doing hobby-wise, then you have that. All right. But right now, because the internet, it's great when it's great and it's not when it's not. There's too many brown nosers right now. There's too many posers. There's too many what I call bottom of the tub drainage regurgitators. Because the problem is once you take public laws and public orders, all right, someone like me, it's all public information. But I use my intellectual property to put it together the way I've put it together, which is why I have a #1 best-selling book, The Midnight Rider Rides Again, and I have part 2 ready. Part 2 is going to be available somewhere around January the 8th on Elvis's birthday. All right, so and part 2 is double the amount of pages, and it's fully crammed with laws, orders, and also all the visuals and optics that you've seen the past 9.5, 10 years. That all create this right here. Because people still, at the end of the day, every single day, Patriots especially, and also Republicans and conservatives who claim to be President Trump supporters, at the end of the day, a lot of people are still treating this as waking up every morning, and what are they doing today? It's all an operation. Now, once again, the internet's good when it's good, and it's bad when it's bad. You got a lot of people out there who have not read, they have not studied, and even if they've read, they can't comprehend what they read. So all the comments about, oh, I don't see anything happening, why would it look like this? All of that stuff is negativity straight out the gate, because there most certainly is an operation going on, because either President Trump is exactly what he is, or he's an idiot for putting a dash in between 45 and 47. Now, I know he's not, but you have to think of it that way. You have to absolutely apply that to yourself, to your daily thinking. You go, either this is the most brilliant operation known to man, or why did he put a dash, which means continuous, 45 continued through 47? Because at any other time, if this was not an operation and I didn't have the laws and orders to back it up, it should be 45 and, little and symbol, or 45 comma 47. The other thing that proves it is this. Every one of you, especially if you're over 40 years old, every single one of you's lived through the swamp. You've lived through Congress being trash and garbage, and they taking advantage of the American people. But also the American people have a big role to play with that as well, because the American people forgot knowing the 3 branches of government and that 535 members of Congress work for us. So it's an equal partnership. Americans have a lot to blame on themselves, but then also congressional leaders out there who took advantage of vulnerable Americans and Americans who don't read, study, or comprehend the law. So it's an equal partnership. But what also proves it, again, is how come Ronald Reagan didn't pull this off? How come no one else pulled this off in history? Because the swamp wouldn't let them, right? So when you identify who the target is and who the enemy actually are, then it all makes sense. But what people aren't doing is applying logic and actually wanting to know what's going on. So to me, I question the people out there who just want to fuss, bicker, argue, just want to get in the comment box just to be seen. What are you doing? What are you doing to contribute to this whole thing? All right, it's the same thing JFK asked. Ask not what my country can do for me, but what can I do for my country? And a lot of people are not doing that right now. Especially December the 22nd, 2024. Where we are right now, we should have I would even say 25% of America would be an awesome number. To go, 25% of Americans are going, holy crap, the dash. Wow, that means continuous. That means he never left. Holy snokes. 45, 46, and 47. Holy crap, holy mackerel. Whatever you want to say out there. If you want to use the other terminology too, holy you know what? Holy Jehoshaphat. Holy something. But how are we this close to number 47 and we have Republicans, conservatives, and patriots who have no idea what's been going on? And then how do we have patriots who claim to be patriots who jump ship daily or look at every single day as a new day? Yes, it's a new day because the sun comes up and the sun goes down and the moon comes up when there's a moon. But other than that, no, they're not waking up and firing off at the hip every day and seeing what Congress is doing and what they're not doing. It's all an operation by laws and orders, like a beautiful broken record. Laws and orders. Laws and orders. So, if you wonder why my breath gets up here in my chest, it's because I care, but it's also showing that people are not reading, studying, and trying to comprehend. Another comment I see a lot, there's 2 of them. I see, why would it look like this? Why would he let the country go to hell if he was the president? Never said he was the president. I said he was a wartime president. There's a huge difference in a president, constitutional by law, and a wartime president. That's where you negative Nancy's out there and all of you Debbie Downers and all of you, oh, the world's falling on me today. That attitude, that's where you're getting that from. It's because your attitude's wrong. You need to readjust your attitude. You need to readjust your perspective. All right. The other thing I hear is, like I said, I've heard everything there is to hear. I've heard every slander. I've heard every threat. I've heard everything. All of it. And it rolls just, have you ever seen water hit a duck's back? Guess what? Because no matter what threat, no matter what slander, no matter what defamation, no matter what idiots out there try to commit felon on me, fraud, and all this other stuff, no matter what comment, no matter what negativity, no matter what, guess what? The laws and orders are still in place right now. They're always going to be there. It's always, anytime the history book's open, this is what's going to say took place from 2016 to 2025. Exactly what took place. So you can either learn it now or learn it later. Plain and simple. All right, because it's going to be accounted for. And it's going to be talked about somewhere down the road a lot more mainstream than what I'm talking about it. And just like anything else in history, it won't be the guy who knew it to begin with that'll get credit for it. It'll be someone down there that had 3 or 4 million followers with some little blue check by their name. They're going to get all the credit for it. That's how it works. And then you'll look like the person, they'll say, oh, well, if it's a team thing, if it's all about a team, then why are you acting that way? It's because some people knew before. Some people knew the whole time. Some people have been trying to help people the right way, not for monetary reasons. And we've gone through hell and fire and you name it to get to you, the people. And especially a guy like me, all I'm doing is keeping my oath. All I'm doing is honoring all the men and women who have fallen, who can't speak right now, who took the same oath, who are in a grave somewhere right now, memorial grave. That's why it matters. So the other comment I see that really is the most hilarious was a guy the other day saying, well, if this is so secretive in a special operation, then how is Derek Jonhson able to talk about it? One, thank you for having my name in your mouth. You're learning something there. Two, it's secretive from the standpoint of, no, they didn't publicize this to the whole freaking world. Why would they do that? And what part of President Trump have you not listened to, Marv? Since this Christmas spirit, Christmas season, we're going to use one of the Home Alone characters, one of the crooks. Why are you acting that way, Marv? Why don't you learn a little something, Marv? How about you learn how things work, Marv? Because here's the deal. Clandestine doesn't mean that the laws and orders are not there. You can know the laws and orders. You can know the outline. You can know the blueprint. You can know the shell. You can know that. Are they going to tell you what mission they're running? No. And I don't know what missions they're running now because I've been in the military and because I have friends and family who are still in and because I have friends and family who have served. There's an easy way, once again, to know what's going on because of, once again, your skill sets and what you know and what you love and what you study and what you're passionate about. There's a way to know by what kind of like helicopter, what kind of aircraft is in the sky or things of that nature. There's a way to know and to know a ballpark around it. But why don't people listen to President Trump? If you love the man, how can you support the man you never listened to? The man told you on the campaign trail in 2016, he told you never again will we voice to the public what's going on with our military, because if you find out, guess who else finds out? He didn't mean laws and orders and publications and proclamations. He don't mean the things that they have to publicly put out. They have to publicly put it out. And it's all out there. That's the very thing I'm reading from. But it's my intellectual property putting it all together, because nobody, when I went viral August 24, 2022, nobody, not a single person out there had put this together in a chronological order that reads just like a puzzle or it reads like a chronological order list. No one had sat down in 1 hour's time, 2 hours' time, put this thing together in a chronological order because they don't have the capacity to remember everything. And that's okay. Not everybody's supposed to. But now that you have somebody who has the capacity to put this all together, it can't be argued or debunked. So guys out there that act like old Marv did, all right, you hadn't learned one thing. Ladies, women, females. Ladies, I say it all the time, and I'm going to make this as, once again, it's every video if I have to. The women of the last 8 years have been more patriots and more soldiers and more fighters and more warriors than any man has ever thought of being. It is what it is because of this right here. Females, in a fun way, love to prove a male wrong. All right, it's just human nature. Ladies love to prove guys wrong. All right, when a guy says that's a fact or absolute fact or absolute truth, ladies are going to go, we're going to find out about that. And what will women do? will comb every single particle of dust, will comb every single particle known to man, and they will find out if it's absolute truth or not. That's why they can remember stuff from 27 years ago, what kind of toothbrush we were using and what kind of deodorant we were wearing the day of an argument, of the whole argument blueprint that they can remember of stuff that you said that far back. So if you want to argue with me, then you need to argue with every female who follows me who has gone and taken the full blueprint, chronological order, and read every single page of all these laws and orders. And we're talking about hundreds and thousands of pages. So, guys, you're letting your testosterone, you're letting your little man syndromes out there, you're letting your little wiener syndromes get in your way of right here. And if you would let this open up, then this right here can follow, because now is the time to be strong. Now is the time to be standing on a foundation, standing on a rock, standing up. Now is that time. But you got to stand up the right way. There ain't no fight needed in the streets. There's no arguments needed in the comment boxes right now. You're living through the greatest show on earth and the greatest, most biblical, monumental, historical operation known to man. But we don't need you in the streets. We need you right now to know what's going on, but then also for moving forward. All right? It's all right. But ladies have proven it. All right? Because once again, if there was something wrong or a discrepancy with everything that I've provided in the order of which, it would have been debunked by now. And laws and orders are not made to be debunked, by the way. You have to respect laws and orders. That's the problem we have right now, is we have people who don't, one, have a foundation. Two, because they don't have a foundation, really there's no argument after that. Because people don't have a foundation to stand on, then there's no way you can respect laws and orders, because you don't even have that foundation. But let's say that someone has a foundation out there like liberals think they do. Well, then two people have to respect the law, because the law is written as neutral as possible. It's on paper as prescribed. And two people have to come to that like a water trough with a horse. All right? And even if you're on the polar opposite side of me, that you still have to respect that neutral law. And that's the problem we have right now, is there's so many people who don't even know the law. And then we have the other portions out there who think, oh, well, you're not a constitutional attorney, and you're not an attorney, and you don't have a law degree, and all this other BS out there that has nothing to do with anything. This is your Department of Education right here. This right here between your ears. We all have one, but we all don't use them. And it's showing right now. All right, this right here, you have to have initiative, and you have to apply. So that means initiative means you got to read, study, and then make it applicable right here. You don't need a degree of any sort to know what's going on. You don't need to be a veteran of any sort to know what's going on. All right? You just got to read, study, and know what you read and studying. So it depends on your level of where you are in your life. If you've never heard of special operations, if you've never heard the term clandestine, if you've never heard irregular warfare, unconventional warfare, anything about it, then you got to go study those components. Then when you study those components, then you can work your way up to what's been put into place. If you have studied those and you do know those, then all you need are the laws and the orders that have been invoked, and then pair those. So it depends on where you are in your journey of life and how bad you want to know what this man is the face of. He's the face of it. All right, he's not the only component of it. That's why, was it a year or two back, I was calling out somebody because they were trying to commit fraud and all kinds of stuff. First off, if you're trying to debunk a law, it doesn't require calling someone a liar. It doesn't require calling someone a grifter and all these other terms. Those terms are terms of people who have either low IQs and not extensive vocabulary, and or they're ignorant as all get out, or they're the deep state, or all the above. It's really that simple. A liar, you can be 100% wrong about something, but not be a liar. All right. So we've got some wacko people out there. We've got some crazy people out there. All right. They want to take laws and orders and then go try to commit all kinds of crimes, right, against somebody and spread all kinds of drama and all that stuff. All right. Now, I don't worry about it from the standpoint of laying in bed at night worrying, but you need to know that, because that's how you put it in your chamber to know how to discern what is and what ain't. All right? Because laws and orders, once again, read exactly how they read. That's why we also have 68% of America, I'm going to say it, 68% of America cannot name, just name them, name the 3 branches of government. So, not you in the comment boxes. A lot of you are followers, so you already know them and you've learned them. But we still have a mass majority of Americans who want to argue, fuss, bicker, whine, complain about something they don't even know how it operates. Then you wonder why we look the way we look. Then you wonder why it had to look this way. So, 3 branches of government. Law enforcement. Who gives Congress the authority to run this nation? Who gives law enforcement the power to enforce the law? Who does that? We do. It's that simple. And what have we had from 2016 beyond, past? People who took the law in their own hands. We had a ring of swamp people who did what they wanted to do with no accountability, no responsibility, no integrity, no transparency. They did what they wanted to do. They got each other in and out of crimes. All right. They covered up for each other. They covered up their crimes for all these years. Now, I know the comments out there say, well, when are we going to see justice? How about you hang on? How about you have a little patience? How about you appreciate the operation that's been put in place to trap all these people, to get all these people? See, that's what you're having problems with, a lot of Americans. You want it now. It's like that J.G. Wentworth commercial. It's my money and I want it now. No, it's not your money. See, that's how the average mind out there that has to call J.G. Wentworth, all right, you're calling a loan company. You need a loan. All right, that's how stupid that commercial is. But guess how many people fall for that crap? A lot of Americans do. It's my money and I want it now. No, it's not your money. All right, you're having to borrow money. So Americans are that way with justice. You all want it right now. Now, now, now. Now, now, now. Now, now, now. It's all on your time. It's all about you. And the same people out there, like the comment I received this week, well, why would it look, same thing again, why would it look this way if President Trump was in charge? Why would he let everything go to hell? Let me show you how selfish that is. Now you can, whoever you are, you can apply it to yourself out there. Whoever it is. Because it may not be anybody watching today. But whoever gets this video later, if that's you, then let me tell you how selfish you are. All right? Where were you in the 2008 financial crisis? That was a real financial crisis. That was a real deal. All right? That was with actual real presidents. All right? What you've been watching the past 8.5 years has been a special operation. And I can prove all that via laws and orders once you open your mind up and you expand your thinking, and once you learn the verbiage, the terminology, the definitions, and the laws and the orders and how they apply. Once you learn all that and then you're open to accept that, then, only then, can you see what's been taking place. But until then, you have to use reverse psychology and show people how selfish they are. Because here's the thing. You've already seen what happened November the 5th, 2024. Guess how far we are past that already? We're almost to January. That's how fast all that build up to November the 5th went. Just like that. And all of the Republicans out there and the conservatives and the quote-unquote patriots who think they're patriots. A lot think they are and they're not, all right, by attitude, all right? But this ain't an argument party for that. But still, all of these people now feel like they got a little feather to put in their cap because of what they witnessed on November the 5th. And now they're sitting back more relaxed going, whoo, we got him in. Yes, he got in. And it was never about him being in. This is an operation. 45 was an operation. The dash is an operation. And 47 is a part of that operation. And it's all outlined in unique laws and orders that are invoked, that show that President Donald John Trump is a wartime president, wartime commander, supreme commander like Eisenhower was, all right? Not a normal 4-year president who left and then went away and then he's back. No, none of that whatsoever. And you're going to do this man an injustice if you think like that. So for all the people out there that thought that this past 4 years, because of what he was saying stuff for proclamation purposes. And once you learn what proclamations are, then it's going to add to your vocabulary, and it's going to also add to the applicable power and the empowerment of this operation, which I've been talking about proclamations, but he had to say certain things. So when you focus too intricate on what he's saying without seeing why he's saying it, see that terminology? Why? You need to know the why and the how. All right, and the when and the wheres. This is what's wrong with Americans. They don't listen to terminology anymore. All right, so just all runs together. So the last 4 years, outside of what he had to say and what his family had to say, because they're part of the operation as well, all right, and multiple other people, Congress and the courts are under a continuity of operations, which are all outlined in laws and orders as well, all right, fully readable. It's a matter, can you apply it or not? Can you comprehend it to apply it? That's all that's lacking out there is people's reading and comprehension skills. It's that simple. But the last 4 years in the normal setting, if you cannot handle 4 years of gas costs, food costs, taxes, inflation, because you've already done it. You ain't hurting. You ain't broke. You ain't doing. You're all here. The ones commenting, that is. Let's hone in on the ones who are commenting. You're in my comment box, so obviously you're living. You're doing okay. You made it through. All right, so if you couldn't make it through 4 years, which you did, but attitude-wise, if you couldn't make it through 4 years of that, for the bigger picture of what's taking place, you're the most selfish individual on the planet. And there's no other way to slice that pie. There's no other way to slice that hair. And it sounds rude, it sounds harsh, but it is what it is. All right, because if you will stop for a moment, if you really care that much, and if you're in my inbox asking questions, why would it this? Well, then, if you're asking the question, then you should be able to be receptive of the answer, because the answer will set you free. The Bible says the truth shall set you free. Well, now, Johnny Cash had a song in 1970 called "What Is Truth?" 1970. So imagine what is truth now. 54 years later. Imagine what is truth now. Truth, facts, they've all been diluted, misused, overused, butchered, twisted, and manipulated by the very people who are supposed to be the ones who enforce the laws. The writers of the laws, the enforcers of the laws, and the interpreters of the laws are the ones who have actually butchered the hell out of all the laws and orders that make you lose all of your common sense, your logic, but also your discernment. But then, how is it that you can't see that this man is the face of an operation that's been different? All right, he's been able to say everything he wanted to say. In a normal setting of the swamp, if this man came in and said everything he said, sure, you would love it, I would love it, we've all loved it, but he would have never gotten away with it. The swamp would have blocked him. What part of that do not people understand? It's that awesome. Come on. Look at what's been taking place. And Newsweek told you In 2017, there's 60,000 secret military. You know how 60,000 secret military all work together cohesively? You know how that works? Enforcing the laws. Because when you do good and you do what's right by the law and you do what's right by just being a good, decent human being, when you do what's right all the time, the definition of integrity, when you do what's right, when you do what's in law and you uphold that and you stand by that, then guess what happens? All of those who aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, what? They get exposed. It's really that simple. And people make it that complicated. So my breath gets up here and my voice and my chest gets up here because I'm passionate. And it's really that simple. And some people need to hear it that way to kind of like shake you. Come on. Stop whining, complaining, bickering, fussing, arguing, and all this other stuff. Put that aside. Put your emotions aside for a moment and apply. Listen. Don't hear to react, listen to respond. It's really simple. All right, so National Guard Reserve components, they're active daily. They don't operate that way. They don't function that way. All right? They have to be invoked. There has to be a presidential call-up if it's a reserves especially. Reserves only serve one mission, federal only. All right? So why are the reserve components active daily? Why are the National Guard active daily? They're active daily. So why are they? It's real simple. Laws and orders. So I'm going to roll through my notes here because got some good stuff for you. So a president's role. This is where people are struggling. A president's role. He's the chief executive officer of the executive branch. The executive branch, one of the three branches of government, the executive branch enforces the law. How difficult is that? It's not. All right, so the legislative branch writes and passes the law. The executive branch enforces the law. The judicial branch interprets the law. Really simple. So there's four places. Four. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro. Right? So that's all the Spanish I know. A little bit more. But number-wise, I'm really good at those four. And that's all you need. Four. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's four ways that military pairs with federal. 1, executive orders. 2, national emergencies. 3, proclamations. 4, international treaties. You know what those all four have in common? They all have to be signed or declared by the president. Imagine that. So a lot of people don't even realize that the military laws and orders are separate from federal laws and orders. A lot of people think that the military and the federal government are the same thing, or they're together, or they're conjoined. They're not. They're separate entities, ladies and gentlemen. All right, our founders were pretty smart when they did this. Our founders established the military first. I mean, it is what it is. They even started a war first before they even established the military. Didn't they establish the military? The first branch, the Army, my branch, right? June 14, 1775, June 30th, 1775, the very first military laws came. Can we do some math here? I mean, it's Alabama hillbilly math. It's not hard math. It ain't Common Core math. All right? It's not hard at all. June 30th, 1775 is when before July 4th, 1776? And I'm pretty sure that 1775 is long before 1787, the Constitution. I mean, it's not that difficult. So, treaties. The President. Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2. Go read it. Constitution. See, what we have in this nation is a problem. We have too many people who just know the word Constitution but know nothing about the Constitution. The Constitution don't apply to me and you. It's for us to apply to the people who want to be representatives of us, right? That's why they call them representatives. And then we have states that have senators, right? All right, so they represent our states on a federal. Hence why when they're in D.C., they'll say, oh, the state of Texas and the state of Florida and the state of West Virginia. All it is are all your states, representatives, going to D.C. to represent our states on a federal. It is really that simple. 535 members of Congress work for us. The Constitution is not applicable to us in everyday life. It's not applicable to us. It's really that simple. But we have to know it and know it word for word in order to know what our representatives are doing and are they representing us the way they're supposed to be representing us. But guess what took place? Americans forgot about that. All Americans, especially liberals all over Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, all day long are atrocious idiots, morons, fools, ignorance, all day long. I mean, every word that applies is what a liberal is, because liberals don't have a foundation. They're a grab-and-go society. They're a build-a-bear. It's just, they're here, there, and there. So they really ain't even worthy of even having a conversation with, because they have no foundation. Nothing. One day they're this, the next day they're that. One day they're this, the next day they're that. They have no foundation. So that's where you, the patriot, you, the Republican, you, the conservative, really need to hone in, because there's one thing they'll do. They may be they'll be fighting, but they all stand together and fight. They'll fight. All right, they may not have a dang clue what they're talking about, but they all are cohesive with one another, and they all join. It's like a pack of wild dogs. All right, that's what they are. And they'll fight tooth and nail. But guess what has happened in the past? Not recently. It's all changed. We're in an operation. But once again, before all that took place, what did Republicans, conservatives do? Because the one who barked the loudest was willing to bark. A lot of Republicans, conservatives, just, I don't want to mess with that. We don't want to make them too mad. We don't want to disturb them. And guess where we're at? But one person like me can't stand up to the wild pack of dogs. All right? In that metaphor. Not in that scenario. In the woods, in real life, you can. All right? With actual coyotes and things that would be an actual pack of wolves, right? Pack of dogs. But in the real life stance, it requires everybody knowing, standing up, knowing our foundation. So, as we move forward, in my new book, I have a question, which I'm not, the book is just really basically a keepsake, not giving anything away. It just is a keepsake to have everything documented. If you want it, it'll be there. It's 580 pages of nothing but showing that you most certainly witnessed what you witnessed. Plus, once again, it has special operations, lieutenant colonel, and also full bird colonel forwards, and also key pieces from theirs. So, it's all outlined. It's all documented. It'll be a keepsake like that. All right, but the one question I ask in there is the very question for people who ask me questions like, why would it look this way and all that stuff. You need to apply this question. Go, okay, how would you drain the swamp effectively and efficiently, top to bottom, by trapping the swamp, exposing the swamp, but never once firing a shot, creating a civil war, creating civil unrest, or a world war? How do you never fire a shot at the enemy, but let the enemy self-destruct on their own? That is what you've been witnessing and watching. Because if you'll go back and listen to President Trump, the man that everybody claims they love, especially Republicans, conservatives, and patriots, if you'll go back and listen to him, on January 13, 2021, he told the whole world the 25th Amendment does not haunt me. He said it doesn't, it's no threat to me. It will come back to haunt Joe Biden. Now, I know Joe's not real, but for the people out there that thinks he's real and thinks he's been president, for those people, I'll play the neutral seat. I always do that first because, once again, until people are receptive and open their minds and leave their emotions aside and read laws and orders that this man invoked and currently still in place, they're still in place. That's what's making those National Guard operate daily. Until people are receptive of that, then you have to come at them at reverse psychology and all these other angles. All right, so how come most Republicans, most conservatives thought President Trump will be using the 25th Amendment on quote-unquote Joe or Congress, quote-unquote? How come that? Because that's what they thought, but it wasn't that way. They didn't portray it that way. So the other cool thing to look at is this. For the ones who absolutely just can't see it, because laws and orders once again show that Joe's not real and he's not president. Never has been. And he's not even real. He's an actor. All right? But until people can grasp that, here's what you do. When you think about it, special operations, you take the playbook of the enemy. You take all their playbooks away from them. You enforce the laws that are on paper. That's why you never saw one single rhino Republican or Democrat tell President Trump you can't do that, because he most certainly can. The laws and orders have been on paper for years, ladies and gentlemen. This is how simple this is. If you'll listen to me, if you'll listen and apply all these laws and orders that are invoked right there, 98% of them have already been in law. So you couldn't stop the world. You couldn't stop everything. There'd have been pandemonium had they stopped everything. So you do an old World War II tactic. You go government in exile. You use a puppet state. And then it's even better because of this. The whole goal of President Trump, not him personally, but this whole goal, the end goal, was to drain the swamp, was to reset our foundation. All right? So we couldn't start a foreign war because that's what the swamp did. The swamp started all these foreign wars. You got to listen to J.D. Vance. You got to listen to everybody. He said if you want your children to fight for warmongers, then vote for Joe. If you want to have your children in the military that's serving for other reasons, not for war, for peace, right? Vote for us. That was a proclamation. Those are all disclosures, all right? So when you install one of the worst criminals ever, then you let all the bad things happen on him. It's just so brilliant how they've done it. They let all the quote-unquote stuff. So in the first 4 years of President Trump, what did they say? He was going to start a nuclear war with North Korea. Remember all that? That didn't happen. He was the first president to walk into North Korea. That was capitulations. All right, all this is strategically planned. All right, North Korea. Also Afghanistan. What happened? Old dude was piping off at the mouth over there. President Trump hit that Moab on him. All that ceased. He destroyed the caliphate. All right. A lot of people don't even know what the caliphate is, don't even know anything about Iraq and all these other places. But only in the comment boxes do people do. He destroyed the caliphate. All right. He declared Jerusalem capital. He established the Abraham Accords, peace in the Middle East. All these things have been taking place. All right. So then the remaining swamp that they had already taken out the upper level up here from 2017 to 2021. All right. Then you let all the other remaining go to shit, as the saying is, under Joe, because that way, guess what President Trump gets to do? While the military is doing what they're doing on the counter-narcotics, which is drug task, all the drug trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking, and child trafficking, all that war has been going on. There's been tons and tons of cocaine busts all over the world, daily and weekly and monthly. People are not paying attention. All right, we're talking about massive, though. We're not talking about what they had done before. Yeah, they've had busts before, years past. We're talking about an all-out war on subterranean warfare. What's going on in Israel right now? Same thing. There's no reason that all those nations that I listed was in Israel in the first week when they said that the Israeli war started up last year. There's no way and no reason why Russia was in Israel the first week of that. Get out of here and think what people think of Russia right now. Right now, much less a year ago. All right, what was a Russian humanitarian aircraft doing in Israel if they're bad? All right, Argentina, Colombia, all right, Nigeria, Algeria, the Netherlands, United Kingdom, Thailand, Romania, Bulgaria, Mexico, Canada, United States, all in Israel within the first week. New Zealand, Australia. We can keep naming here. Norway, Sweden. Let's go. In 1 week's time. See, people don't listen to what matters. People don't study and read what matters. People are still going to Turning Point, and people are still going to all these places where it's surface level talking. Well, it's good when it's good, but if you really want to know what's going on, you got to get down to the brass knuckles. You got to get down to what this man operates and functions with. All right? Besides his mouth, it's laws and orders. It's really that simple. All right? Now, Turning Point's not bad for what it is. I'm not here to bash, but too many people are trying to get you damn news from the wrong kind of sources. All right? When you want to know what's going on, you got to go to the laws and orders of what this man operates with. His sole reason, chief executive officer of the executive branch, is to enforce the laws. Well, that probably means you need to know the laws, right? You probably need to know what those are. So if you want to really appreciate this man, go know what this man does and then go read and study what's currently in votes right now. So all this stuff, you make all the bad stuff because they couldn't have stopped, once again, after November the 3rd, 2020, they couldn't have just stopped for the average layman, even though that was already operation. See, the problem is teaching this requires knowing it's been in operation from the get-go. So it's hard to teach it from an average reverse psychology because it's always been in operation. And we still have Republicans, conservatives, and I'm like President Trump. I don't give a shit that you're a Republican or a conservative. That has nothing to do with anything. It's actually been a problem for you. It's been a crutch, to be honest with you. Because you're all entitled if you think that. If you're still walking around saying, I'm a Republican, I didn't ask you you're a Republican. Do you know the laws and orders currently in vote right now? Well, I'm a Republican. I vote Republican. I mean, you already know how many times I've heard that before. I'm like, I didn't ask you, are you a Republican? I asked you, do you know the laws and the orders currently in vote by the man that you claim to support? Yes or no? And if it's no, then I'm not going to beat you up. But once again, Republican has nothing to do with anything. It's just a name. If we wanted to change it, if we wanted to make all Republicans Democrats and all Democrats Republicans, then guess what that would need? A majority to go, you know what? Yeah, we're going to be that now. We're not going to be that. I mean, none of this stuff matters. So it's hard to teach this stuff from an average, oh, well, I'll sit in the devil's advocate seat and be neutral because it's been an operation from the get-go. And we still have Patriots and Republicans who think that, oh, it's all about 2020. This was never about November the 3rd, 2020 alone. Never. Ever. This was about an operation. This whole thing is an operation. You have to look at the whole thing as a whole. You cannot look at that because it didn't stop there. So what's this little booger doing here? Well, it's got a meaning too. And then this will have a meaning. But we're still in this. So it's pretty brilliant when you really look at it. They couldn't stop the world, so they had to keep it going. So they say, well, we'll use an old World War II tactic, government in exile, and then we can invoke this law and this law and this law and put the military and a military government and a military occupation, continuity of operations, continuity of government, and then make all the bad stuff happen under, let's pick somebody, oh, all the Democrats have always wanted Joe Biden to be president, so we'll make the people think that he's real, and then we'll let all the shit hit the fan under him, and then guess what President Trump gets to do? Come in and finish out the rest of the swamp. Because once you clean up what's going on in Syria, once you clean up what's going on in Afghanistan, and what's going on in Iraq, those have been going on for 20 plus years, ladies and gentlemen. And Syria has been going on for 12, about 11 or 13 or 14 years now, give or take. All right, where have you been? All right, that's the question you got to ask yourself. Where have you been? If you ain't heard about Syria, where have you been? All right, so all of these have been going on long before who was president? President Trump. So you let all the other stuff, they took care of most of this swamp here, and then they couldn't stop the world in 2020 and January 20th, 2021, so we went into a military government, military occupation, continuity of operations, continuity of government, all done lawfully, and then they let all the other stuff hit the fan under Joe, and then guess what? By law, President Trump gets to walk in and clean all that up, and then when you get done with the whole operation, the whole swamp has been completely annihilated and completely drained. All new laws and orders where we need them. The laws and orders that are great on paper, well, we got all the key components in place for that. It don't matter. See, like right now, great example. All these Democrats and liberals think that quote-unquote Joe appointed 236 judges. All right, guess what those judges have to do, ladies and gentlemen? They still have to read the law as applicable by the law, or they can be removed. So it don't matter about that. So there's a great optic and a great thing that people have witnessed recently. If you think Joe's real, all the laws and orders elsewhere shows Joe's not real. So that's real simple. All right. But for the ones who think that, guess what? Law is still the law. And the law is going back to common law. That's already changing. All right. And then the law exams are already changing back to common law. All right. So everything in place had to be done. Well, guess who does that? It wasn't President Trump alone. To get that many professors all around the countries in the world, it's not just the U.S. that's changing. So to get those people to change, do you know what kind of people are behind this? Do you know what kind of massive world leaders and military generals are behind all this? The secret militaries? There are so many good people behind this for that to take place. And when people say nothing, they can't see anything happening, nothing's happening, and I can't see anything, because you don't know what to look for and to look at, and you're still going over the surface level crap that's eating and destroying what little bit of brain cells you have. You're watching all the crap, and that's what's making you tired and exhausted. So by the time you get to something that's good for you, you're tired and exhausted because you're wasting your time on all the wrong people. And people like Turning Point and all these others, they more than likely under an NDA and know what's going on. Maybe not intricately, but they know enough to know, okay, don't talk about these certain things. All right. So when people are going to Fox and OAN and Newsmax and all these other podcasters out there simply because they got millions of followers, that don't mean a thing. It don't mean a thing. And history has shown, Waco, Texas, Jim Jones as well, drink the Kool-Aid. History's shown it don't take a massive grove of people to follow the wrong thing. All right. All it takes is you being able to be brainwashed. All right. Which there's an old quote out there that it's easier to trick people than it is to convince them they've been tricked. All right. So how do you know to discern? Well, a guy like me is showing you .gov and .mil sites of everything currently invoked. So that means you got to go read those. And once again, like I said earlier in the podcast, either you know the verbiage right out the gate and you're going to be good, then all you need are the laws and orders invoked. Or if you don't know the verbiage, then guess what you're going to have to do? Study the definitions, the verbiage, the language, the terminology. Learn those first, the glossary, and then move your way up to how they apply. And that's where people are having trouble. All right. So now let's get into some other stuff. So 95% are the laws and orders on paper. All President Trump and the military generals had to do was enforce those. All right? Set the traps everywhere else, sign new executive orders where needed, declare national emergencies where needed, and then proclamations. Those have all been done. That has all been done. And that is currently what's going on right now. So, really quick, let me shut this blind real quick. I didn't expect this. The sun don't come out all day until today. And so, just a brief moment. I'm glad I'm wearing pants today. Woohoo! Yes, sir. I'm wearing pants today. If this had just been a few days ago, I'd have had to found a unique way to sneak out of that one. But anyway, might would have had some people happy out there. You never know. So, that's what took place. And there's unique laws and orders in place that's going to show you that. Now, here's the other thing. And I ain't going to get into name calling out there because there was one particular person last year that was doing all this. And, they're under an NDA as well. The problem I have are the podcasters, the low-level, brown-nosing, regurgitating podcasters who kept asking these people a question, knowing good and well they couldn't answer it. So that shows how incompetent some podcasters are, and also just seeking drama. All right, because they kept trying to pin me against a particular person last year. Most of you know who I'm talking about, but I'm not going to say it. All right, but you'll hear people out there, and I have called out a certain person, which is ridiculous when someone has 500,000 followers and they're sharing some random bot, but especially someone that was attached to a hate group, sharing someone that's got like 22 followers. No offense to you out there if you got 22 followers, but this is someone who had 500,000 with a blue check sharing a post by someone who just absolutely hates me, which is fine. I live rent-free in your head, first off. But when you say that it is unconstitutional for the military to be involved in civilian matters, and it goes against the very fabric of America, you have no idea what you're talking about. And when this person did that, this person with the blue check, it shows that this person is what I call all lip gloss and no laws and orders. All right, this is someone who's brown-nosing, who just wants to be a name, just wants to be a face, and wants to tote the news. All right, there's too many people out there just wanting to tote the news just to tote the news. They have no passion, they don't care, and or they don't have an oath like I'm doing, what I'm keeping, and I love it. I'm passionate about this stuff. All right, so it's not unconstitutional. So for one, dear person out there, and people who think that way, why do we have the Declaration of Independence? Can you please enlighten me why we have the Declaration of Independence? Why do we have people who celebrate the 4th of July? They're all fireworks and all 4th of July, but don't know anything about what the Declaration of Independence says whatsoever. And it was Abraham Lincoln, one of our greatest presidents of all time. It was Abraham Lincoln who said the Declaration of Independence was more important than the Constitution. And I agree. And here's why. Because our founders started a war. They kicked off a war without any piece of paper, any documentation. Then they established the branches of the military, the Army. Army first. Then military law in between that and the Navy, the Continental Navy, then the Marine Corps, then the very first flag, all came in 1775. The Declaration of Independence came July 4th, 1776. Do your math. I mean, it is really not that. It's not that difficult. That is 11 years before the Constitution of the United States of America, which was September the 17th, 1787. But ironically, in between that, still in the Revolutionary War, where our first Constitution was the Articles of Confederation, which was November the 15th, 1777. all right, which was the next year, obviously, after the Declaration of Independence. All right, which is why President Trump's been talking about Canada, the 51st state, and he's calling Trudeau governor. All right, we'll go look at Article 11 of the Articles of Confederation. What do you find in there? Canada. Ooh, see why knowing the fabric of America? But guess what was also established on June 14th, 1775? The oath. The oath of military. Taking the oath. All right. So our founders, the whole purpose of our founders, established everything we have, which was military and legislation, the three branches of government. Our very fabric of America was the military first and then legislation second. So all these people out there that say anything remotely close to that, they don't even know the basic core principles and core values of our foundation. It shows they want to change it, though. It shows they want to make it what they want to make it, build a bear, grab and go. They don't care about our foundation. So when you hear people say it's unconstitutional for the military to step in, they have no clue what they're talking about. And then to back about the Constitution, right? Marbury versus Madison, 1803. One of our founding fathers having to go into the Supreme Court and argue in 1803. Do the math, ladies and gentlemen. Look at where we are now. We had to have a founding father going to the Supreme Court in 1803, not long after the Constitution, 1787. I mean, do the math on that. Do the math. Right? What, 16 years later, we got a dang freaking founder going in having to argue what a law is? Says any statute, basically, that bears the appearance of a law that doesn't support the Constitution is null and void. All right? So look at where we are now. We have people who can't even look at the oath of enlistment. We have people who can't even look at straight up simple foundation and comprehend that and apply that. Then 1871, 1878 is where everything went awry. That's when the Organic Act signed us back under the crown. That's when the crown, the Vatican, and London all became cohesive. Canada, 1867. Do your math. All right, we're going to get to another important point. 1868. Look at that. 1867, Canada goes under the crown. 1871. Now look right in the middle of that, the 14th Amendment, which we're going to talk about in a minute. All right, 1868. So let's look at the Declaration really quick. It says specifically that to secure these rights, governments instituted among men, deriving their powers just from the consent of the governed. All right. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Now let's go on down. This is the best part. So when you do your math from 1871 and 1878, the Organic Act, all right, then you look at 1951 when Congress put term limits on the president, but not themselves. Then you look at everything in between that I break down on all my other podcasts, right? When you look at what the swamp became, read this. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security. It don't get any more simpler than that. And anybody who says Anybody who says it's unconstitutional for the military to be involved with civil matters is an absolute damn fool. It's just a damn fool. Then, let's look at the oath. This is why no veteran out there, if you're a veteran and you served honorably, you can't have one without the other. Title 10, Section 502. Every one of us veterans raised our right hand to Title 10, Section 502, which says, I do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to bear true faith, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. I mean, how is that difficult? Did it stutter? I know I don't stutter. All right. Did that read not how it reads? What part of our foundation, what part of the Declaration of Independence, what part of the oath doesn't add up here? So when you hear people out there say that, they're either absolutely ignorant and or they're deep state. I don't care how Republican they think they are, conservative they think they are, and patriot they think they are. They're either absolutely ignorant and or they're deep state or deep state in the closet. So here we go. For all the questions I've been receiving this week, we're going to do this right here. So, I'm going to read this first. All right, I had it out of order. When people say that it's unconstitutional, this is how ignorant they are, especially when someone like me has a photographic memory. All right, is this. Joint Publication 3-57. Joint Publication 3-57. This is July 2018. All right. I'm going to read this. I'm going to read all of it because it's important. Chapter 2, page 46 of Joint Publication. Joint Publication, guess what? Guess what the front page, I wish I could turn the phone around. Guess what the front page says? Civil dash, oh my Lord, there's another dash. What do you know? Civil dash military operations. Joint Chiefs of Staff. Who was President Trump just with at the Army-Navy game? Charles Q. Brown. Ha 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 ha. Might want to go look up who Charles Q. Brown is and the Joint Chief of Staffs. Ooh, boy, this is so much fun. People say, you just love being right. Maybe I do. Maybe I do. Maybe I do love being right because it's all laws and orders. And being right in this case, guess what that means? We're all right if you're on the right side. Oh, boy. Throwing their flames today. Chapter 2, page 46. Remember, it's all in operation. All right. Per the Posse Comitatus Act and DOD regulations, before I read this, that reminds me. 2 years ago when I went viral, I just got to do this just because I am that person. 2 years ago when I went viral, there was a Marine Corps veteran, and I love Marine Corps. They are awesome, great. If I say this all the time, if every branch will love their branch and know the laws and the orders and the regulations like the Marine Corps, we'd be a lot better off. But this one particular one, unfortunately, wasn't firing all crayons, all right? And this one particular one wanted to take arms with me on a podcast, right? Wanted to go up in arms, wanted to be that person versus trying to find the neutral ground, all right, which it's all right here. This is the neutral ground. I'm not the neutral ground. This is the neutral ground. They didn't want to do that, so I had to embarrass them, which is unfortunate. But It's all people who want a name and want a face, and just because they were at J6, oh, they thought that they needed a podcast. That ain't always the case, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes you're at a place in your life where you may just be in a video that went viral on President Trump's page, and you shouldn't have started a podcast. I mean, it depends, right? I was thrown right into it. All right, I went globally viral. Boom! Instantly, hundreds of thousands of people. Well, that told me that God wanted me right here, right then, at that moment, and to follow God's will, right? But I don't talk about God a whole lot because there's a lot of them too. There's a lot of this right here on the internet with that. All right, but this person, all they knew was posse comitatus, and I'm like, congratulations, you know a big word, great for you. But guess what? You don't know everything, because there is an actual clause for this. And you might want to go read and study that. Yes, the president most certainly can use the United States military outside of posse comitatus. All right. So there's still people out there that want to argue this. But guess what? They don't have Joint Publication 3-57. The other cool thing about Joint Publication 3-57 is it's not available on the Department of Defense. It says page not found. Ooh, I wonder why. It's not been revoked or anything. All right. It's under the actual American Federation of Scientists, all right, who house a lot of these. All right. But it's still current. That's what's key. Now, I will proceed. Per the Posse Comitatus Act and DOD regulations, the United States is generally prohibited from employing Title 10, United States Code, Department of Defense forces, meaning active military. Key thing there. You gotta, this is why you gotta know terminology. This is why people like that person don't read and don't pay attention to terminology. Per the Posse Comitatus Act and DOD regulations, Department of Defense, the United States is generally prohibited, meaning that it's in general, but there's an exception. Prohibited from employing Title 10, United States Code, Department of Defense forces, which are active duty, to provide direct military involvement to enforce the law of the United States, drum roll, unless expressly authorized by the Constitution or Congress. See, all it takes is 3 sentences to just go slap someone upside the head virtually, who just don't want to listen, who just wants to argue, be argumentative, defensible, be right on their standards of right, be right on their standards of truth, be right on their standards of facts, versus going and reading what's neutral and right, neutral and factual, neutral and truthful. Per the Posse Comitatus Act and Department of Defense regulations, the United States is generally prohibited from employing Title 10, United States Code, Department of Defense forces to provide direct military involvement to enforce the law of the United States unless expressly authorized by the Constitution or Congress. Well, let's go look where the Congress did that. Oh, what is that I always talk about in every one of my podcasts? Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. That is the Congress expressly saying we're going to use the United States military where we need to. Regular and irregular forces. Irregular forces is unconventional warfare, ladies and gentlemen. That's special operations. See how all this stuff pairs? I'm telling you. Oh, man. So, once again, I ask, why are all the National Guard active daily? Why are the reserve components active daily? They got to be under laws and orders. Well, that's how. Because of this right here, ladies and gentlemen. COVID and the border. Those are federal. Those are not state only. Those are federal issues. That was rebellion and invasion of public safety. Easy. COVID was a retaliation by the Chinese. All right, the deep state. All right. They knew when President Trump won in 2016. Remember all before that? He'll never be president. Never, 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 never. Remember all the mainstream media? Remember all the actresses? Remember all the actors? Remember all that build-up before? How President Trump was never, and then it happened? Yeah, the shocker, right? Because what took place? Military government, all right? Military stepped in, all right? National Guard. It's all there, ladies and gentlemen. That's the reason why we have executive orders in place with national emergencies, all right? And it's all easy. So you got to go back and look at what took place, all right? How did Anthony Fauci know to speak at Georgetown University, January the 12th, 2017, 8 days before President Trump took his oath? How did Fauci be able to say that we know for a fact this next administration in a few years will experience a pandemic? A few years, ladies and gentlemen, 3 years. Do your freaking Alabama hillbilly math. 3 years on a January the 12th, 2017. What year does that put you in? 2020? How did they know? How did Fauci know then? And what people need to understand about special operations is you put your enemy right out in front of everybody. People try to associate President Trump with Fauci and all these other people. You make them lie to you. He put every single person right in front of you and they lied to you. They did that to you. All right? It's complete exposure. But also, it's an integrity thing. From this standpoint, President Trump drew a line in the sand and he gave everybody a chance to do what was right. Come over to this side. Come over here. Come over here and do what's right. You don't have to choose that. Come over here and do what's right. They did not do that. All right? So, however you want to slice the pie, whether you want to believe this is all real or if you want to get on the right side of it being an operation, that's up to you. But it's all there. It's all in laws and orders. It's all in a blueprint, a special operations. It's all in a chronological blueprint. All right? So, rebellion. And then border invasion, public safety. Well, guess what article? I'm going to read it word for word for you here. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2. It's called the writ of habeas corpus. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless... Wow, isn't that funny how that little word just seems to be... It's pretty cohesive. Man, it's pretty consistent in our laws and everything. It's funny how it just keeps popping up, right? The writ of the privilege, so the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion of public safety may require it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2. That is called the suspension clause. This is the suspension of the Constitution. So when you hear people out there saying that, oh, President Trump, that's unconstitutional. It's constitutional. It's in the damn Constitution. It's just so hilarious when you hear people say that's unconstitutional. It's in the Constitution. The president can suspend the Constitution. And when that happens, guess what that means? Military government, because the military government and the military are separate from federal. The only way they pair, once again, executive orders, proclamations, national emergencies, and treaties. All four of those have to be either signed or declared by the president, which means commander-in-chief. All right? That's how they pair. That's why when the people say that they don't know the difference, Congress says they're the ones who declare the war, and then the Constitution says, well, the president is the commander-in-chief of the Army and the Navy. Well, that's how they pair right there. That's how they still pair. There's not just one place that shows that they're separate. No, it says the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion of the public safety may require it. All right? Then you got to know where the four ways that military pairs with federal laws and orders. Once again, executive orders, executive, chief executive officer, the executive branch, executive orders, president. All right, they don't require legislation unless Congress deems that they're unconstitutional. Then they can go to Congress over that. It's going to take 2/3 of the vote, all right, to override that. But the president can veto that. First off, they go, that's how it works. So Congress takes it, and they go, okay, it's unconstitutional. The president can veto that. Then that's when it can go to 2/3 of a vote. You know, that's unconstitutional. Well, ain't none of them done that. All of President Trump's executive orders are in place, all right, with national emergencies. All right, so Congress did not try to challenge any of President Trump's 11 executive orders with 11 national emergencies. They're in place. All right, they're still in votes right now, 8 of them. All right, so that's key. So let's get over here. Let me get back to my notes real quick. Make sure I stay on topic. So then, rebellion, invasion of public safety. Go back to joint publication unless by the Constitution, authorized by the Constitution of Congress. All right, Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. Title 50 is War and National Defense. Chapter 33 is the War Powers Act of 1973, which amended the War Powers Act of 1941 and 1942. Then Section 1550. Guess when it was put in there? Drum roll. I always do this. December the 20th, 2019. And it specifically says this. Not later than 180 days after December the 20th, 2019, and every 180 days thereafter, the President shall submit to the Congressional Defense Committees, the Committee on Foreign Relations of the Senate, and the Committee on Foreign Affairs of the House of Representatives a report on actions taken pursuant to the authorization for use of military force, Public Law 107-40, against those countries or organizations described in such law, as well as actions taken to command, coordinate, participate in the movement of, or accompany the regular or irregular forces. There's your special operations. There's your unconventional warfare. Of any foreign government or country when such forces are engaged in hostilities. So, watch this. All right. So, recently, September the 27th, 2024. You talking about getting mad, I annihilated, and I want to name them by names, but there are podcasters out there who have annihilated this Department of Defense directive that just was put out September the 27th, 2024. They take one directive and nothing else, and they butcher the ever-living you-know-what out of it. But this is how it all applies. Department of Defense Directive 5240.01. Guess what it is? It is actually titled the Department of Defense Intelligence and Intelligence-Related Activities and Defense Intelligence Component Assistance to Law Enforcement Agencies and Other Civil Authorities. Implements, this is the purpose of it, listen, implements Executive Orders 12333, which is about assassinations and intelligence, and Title 50, United States Code. Implements Title 50. Title 50, the last amendment to Title 50, ladies and gentlemen, the last amendment to it was by Congress December the 20th, 2019, President Donald John Trump, Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. That very clause I just read from. Now add in your joint publication 3-57, unless by the Constitution, unless by the Congress. Now read that. This brand new Department of Defense directive for law enforcement and intelligence, DOD intelligence, etc., all your intelligence departments, implements executive. Now, let's read page 5. It gets even better. The defense intelligence components will only conduct or provide support for the conduct of covert activities. 1. In times of war declared by Congress. 2. During a period covered by a report from the President to Congress in accordance with Public Law 93-148. And number 3, when such actions have been approved by the President and directed by the Secretary of Defense. Oh boy. Liberals look some kind of ignorant right now. All over X, all over Twitter, all over Facebook. Liberals are some kind of ignorant right now. Especially what's going to be talked about here shortly. But this right here. There's 3 components. During a period covered by a report from the President to Congress in accordance with Public Law 93-148. You know what Public Law 93-148 is? The War Powers Act. And let's go back over to Joint Publication 3-57. All of the people out there who say it's unconstitutional for the military to be involved with civil matters. And it says, what? What did that say again? Per the Posse Comitatus Act and DOD regulations, the U.S. is generally prohibited from employing Title 10. DOD forces to provide direct military involvement to enforce the law of the United States unless expressly authorized by the Constitution or Congress. Well, guess what that says over here again in the DOD directive? When such actions have been approved by the President and directed by the Secretary of Defense. Well, guess what? In Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, that first 180 days clause, President Donald John Trump. The Defense Production Act was amended and extended to September the 30th, 2025. That means every time you see the DPA invoked, that the accounts, the appropriations, the money was appropriated March the 2nd, 2020. Who was the president? That was in the first 180 days. March the 13th, President Donald John Trump declared a verbal national emergency. Verbal proclamation, of a national emergency. March the 13th, 2020. Same first 180 days. March 27th, 2020, President Donald John Trump federalized 1 million reserve components to active duty. That order is still in place. It is active, not revoked. Also, in the same first 180 days, the United States military embarked on a counter-narcotics operation April the 1st, 2020 by the United States Southern Command. That is still in place, still intact. Also, in the same first 180 days, Donald John Trump, wartime president, directed and gave equal authority to the Secretary of Defense, the authority to federalize the selected reserves to active duty with Executive Order 13919 on April the 30th, 2020. What did that say again over here in DOD directive? It says, during a period covered by a report from the President to Congress in accordance with Public Law 93-148, which is the War Powers Act, which the last amendment to the War Powers Act, Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, was put there by Donald John Trump, December the 20th, 2019, and the Congress, of which the joint publication, Joint Chiefs of Staffs, where the military can be involved with civil matters with our active duty military, not just National Guard, not just reserve components. In the joint publication, it says by a report. Well, that is what that says. What does it say again? It says not later than 180 days after December the 20th, 2019, and every 180 days thereafter, the President shall submit to the Congressional Defense Committees a report on actions. Well, there it is. Right there, ladies and gentlemen. You can't argue with laws and orders. That's currently what's taking place. And Title 10. What does joint publication say again? Per the Posse Comitatus Act and DOD regulations, the U.S. is generally prohibited from employing Title 10. Well, guess what? Title 32, or your National Guard, with your governors involved. Title 10 requires the President. Well, Executive Order 13912 and Executive Order 13919 from that first 180 days under that December the 20th, 2019, Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, those executive orders that President Trump put into place invoke Title 10, Section 12302 and Title 10, Section 12304. Those have not been revoked. They have not been terminated. They're still active. And also, for those of you who think that Joe is president who's continued these executive orders, a continuation order, ladies and gentlemen, are to be put in the Federal Register where they are made public. How come Joe Biden, none of the continuation orders of those 8 executive orders with 8 national emergencies? So here we go. 11 executive orders with 11 national emergencies were extended, continued 2 years in a row. All right. Only 8 of those have been continued 4 years in a row. How come not a single continuation order by Joe continuing one of President Trump's executive orders, how come they're not published in the Federal Register where they belong, either via under the executive orders or the proclamations? Not a single one of those continuity or continuation orders have been published where they belong on federalregister.gov. It's really that simple, ladies and gentlemen. They're supposed to be there. They're not there. All right. It shows you a continuity of operations, a continuity of government. It means that what you're watching, a continuity of operations, the 8 national central functions of a continuity of operations look very, very identical to what you would think of a regular government, because you don't operate in that. You don't know that. You don't see that. You don't know that language. You don't know that verbiage. So go look up the 8 national central functions. The very first one says to maintain a constitutional government. So a continuity of operations, the very first national central function is to maintain a constitutional government. All right. See, that's why you got to know the laws and the orders. All right. But to bring it all home, once again, how come Joe, none of the continuation orders are under had to put something in place? But what better than to put one of the most dirty political, dirty though, like scums of the earth, politicians, career politicians in there, and let all the shit fall on them visually until people are ready to accept what's been going on. See, that's the problem we have right now. A lot of patriots, let's don't even pick on the liberals. I think a lot of liberals might actually, some of them, Democrats especially, fence riders, I think a lot of them will be receptive to know what's been going on. Let's just be honest. A lot of Republicans, conservatives, and patriots are the ones that are up in arms. Oh, y'all, because it don't fit your truth, it don't fit your narrative, it don't fit your facts. All right? And he claimed to love this man. He claimed to love President Trump, but you don't know anything of what he does, his role, his duties, his responsibilities. Don't know anything about it. You don't know anything about the laws and orders in place that he is the face of, the operator of. I mean, that's pretty sad if you ask me. It's pretty pathetic, actually. It's pretty sad for Americans. It's not a good look at all, especially to the rest of the world. And I have a lot of followers that are not Americans. And to them, it looks pathetic. I mean, let's just be honest. Americans look selfish and atrocious right now by all standards, all the way across the board, but especially Republicans and especially conservatives and a lot of patriots. All right, because it's all right here. All that right there was like mic drop moment, because it's all current, it's all new, and it don't matter that the orders in place are 4 and 5 years old. That don't mean a thing. That don't mean a thing, because if the liberals are going crazy over President Trump talking about bringing up an act from 1798, 1798. Let's do your math there. 1798, 2020. I mean, which one do you think's older? I mean, I'm pretty sure 1798 is older than 2020. All right? So that ain't got a thing to do with anything. It matters who's in charge, who's in power, who's enforcing the laws. All right? And there's enough in place to show you that. So there's that. Then you go over to DOD directive, continuity policy. The whole thing, DOD directive, or actually as Department of Defense instruction. All right, there's DOD instructions and there's DOD directives. DOD instruction 3020.26 from June the 4th, 2024, not that long ago. All right, not that long ago. DOD directives and DOD instructions, September the 27th, 2024 and June 4th, 2024, outline everything. If you look at the DOD instruction from 3020.26 from June 4, 2024, guess what this one says? This issuance reissues 2018 directive as DOD instruction in accordance with the authority in DOD Directive 5111.01 and consistent with Presidential Policy Directive 40 and Executive Order 13961 to establish policy, assign responsibilities, and prescribe procedures in the DoD Continuity Program. This whole Department of Defense instruction from June the 4th, 2024 is titled the Department of Defense Continuity Policy. It's all about the continuity of operations in the Defense Department. All right, and if you go to page 6 of it, I'm going to skip over there really fast. All right, it reads this in 2 different places of this DoD instruction. Develops and maintains a Secretary of Defense successor program in accordance with DoD's 3020.04 and 3020.53 and reflecting the order of succession prescribed by the President currently set forth in Executive Order 13963. Now that's hilarious right there. All right, because this whole DoD continuity policy implemented Executive Order 13961, which is December the 7th, 2020, which is President Trump's mission. So it's the Federal Mission Resilience Strategy. Inside of the Federal Mission Resilience Strategy, if you go read about it and go read the intricacies of it, it talks about continuity of operations, continuity of government. All right. This right here says Order of Succession prescribed by the President. This is a June 4, 2024 Department of Defense Instruction Manual. And it says that the most recent Order of Succession is currently set forth in Executive Order 13963. That was December the 10th, 2020. Every single president has had an Order of Succession in the Federal Department and Department of Defense since 1947. How come Joe Biden doesn't have an Order of Succession in the federal government or the Defense Department? How come? He doesn't. This says right here that the most recent Order of Succession up to date, 2024, is from 2020. That right there also proves continuity of operations, military government, military occupation. All right? Because the only 2 things that you'll find, by Joe Biden that's continued was in the first, let's see, it was 2021 and then 2023. All right. And guess what those are? They've been continued by every single president because they're about executive orders that have been put into place years ago. All right. They've been continued by every president. So that's not something he did on his own. That's something that every president has done. So when you go look at all the executive orders, if you go look at all the proclamations by quote-unquote Joe, not a single order to do with the military or anything federal pairing with the military is anything by Joe. Explain that. Explain that. So, for all the people out there that think just because they go to executive orders and, well, his name's on here and this is an executive order right here and this is a proclamation right here, ladies and gentlemen, it has nothing to do with anything. It's all civil affairs. It has nothing to do with military, nothing to do with federal, and all this stuff you see on TV to do with Congress, they're under continuity of government. So if you don't seek to understand a military government, military occupation, continuity of operations, continuity of government, special operations, clandestine operations, unconventional warfare, irregular warfare, and what you're watching, and look at all the things that are in place right now that are presidential, and put a column up, go, okay, let's put a presidential column up of what presidents can and can't do, and then the can't do's here, the can do's here, and the can't do's here. Then when you do that, you're going to find out that there's nothing in place by quote-unquote Joe. And when people say stuff like, well, they signed the National Defense Authorization Act, every president signs that. That is part of a continuity of operations to maintain our military. You got to go read the 8 essential functions, national essential functions of a continuity of operations. So when you stack the column up of all the stuff that a president is supposed to have again and doesn't have, Joe Biden's the first in history that has this column. The first. Because all this over here that shows nothing but President Trump is a wartime president. It's unique, It's different. It sounds far-fetched, but until you know that, until you learn that, until you open your mind, remove your emotions, open your mind, and seek to understand how laws and orders work, all you're going to do is that man an injustice, especially if you claim to love him and support him. You're going to do him injustice. So, all of that right there, when you go back and replay this video, and you do the breakdown again of, once again, how the military can most certainly be involved in all the laws and orders invoked right now, you can't argue with it. It's current. That DOD directive from September, that wasn't that long ago. See, what people do is get 2 and 3 and 5 years down the road and want to go, well, that's 5 years ago. Well, I was telling you when it was going on. Why didn't you listen then? See, and so what people tend to do is get down the road, and I'm like, I was telling you then. Why didn't you listen then? I wasn't old then. It wasn't old news then. I was sitting there telling you then. Why didn't you listen then? So if you want to know why God put me here, God put me here for those of you who want to know what's going on. If you just want to be in the run-of-the-mill, and you just want to argue, fuss, bicker, my pages aren't for you whatsoever. They're not there for you for that. If you want to know what's going on, then my pages are designed where you got to go from the very first post and work your way up. That's how that works. Mine's a continuity as well, because of where I went viral in the middle of all this. That's how you do that. So, I've found a new way to break this all down to people. It's a great way to do it. So either President Trump is a wartime president of all these unique laws and orders that are in place. Once again, if you take a presidential column and what a president has and what he doesn't have, if you take that, President Trump is full of wartime president. Biden's all continuity of operations, all a distraction. And if you're still falling for the drones, if you're still falling for the Chinese balloons, if you're still falling for all of that, you're still falling for the one comment you heard here and the one comment you heard there. If you're still falling for that, you're where you need to be, because you're falling for distractions. I'm not for you. All right? If you're still falling for distractions. And I'm okay with that. Everybody has a purpose in life. All right? But if you're still falling for the distractions, and if you want to be negative Nancy, and you want to be Debbie Downer, you want to be all this stuff over here, you want to fall for all the negativity, if you want to run over to Turning Point, you want to go run over to here, and you want to go run over to there, and you think that they're giving you news, all right, then I'm not for you. It's really that simple. Because I talk laws and orders that are currently on paper, currently invoked. I don't talk drama. I don't get into the surface level. I don't get into reality TV. I don't get into any of that. That's not what my pages are designed for. So if that's what you're here for, you're at the wrong place. All right? And you need to come back when you're more open and receptive to what President Donald John Trump's role is, responsibilities, and what his duty is as a commander-in-chief and the president, constitutional president, but of the chief executive officer of the executive branch. That's what that's for. All right, so either President Trump is a wartime president as prescribed by laws and orders currently invoked, or Joe Biden is the most greatest commander-in-chief in the history of the world and United States. It's one or the other. All right, now, the columns stack up by laws and orders to show that President Donald John Trump is a wartime president. All of the column that you would stack to show of what's invoked shows that President Trump is, and Joe Biden is a continuity of operations, special operation. It's a trap by the United States military where they pair civil and military. It's all a trap, continuity of operations. It's a way to expose the swamp. You can't tell some people, once again, if you could tell everybody, then I'm the only person people would have to listen to put it all together, and then everything can make sense. But because people don't listen, you have to show them. All right, so the people out there are still falling for the distractions, the drones and the Chinese balloons, and the Congress doing this and the Congress doing that. And why they keep sending our money here? Ain't none of you seen that money make one little, you ain't seen it go anywhere. You ain't seen nothing. You're just going by here, and you're still falling for mainstream news, which is what President Trump calls as fake news. Why are you still watching the very thing he tells you not to watch? How come most Americans, conservatives, Republicans, still aren't on True Social following the man? His numbers reflect that. His numbers show over there versus his numbers on X and Twitter. It shows that Patriots, Republicans, and conservatives still don't listen to the man. All right? The man they claim to love and support, they're not over there supporting him. So he's either a wartime president, once again, and all the laws and orders and votes show that. You got to know those laws and orders first. And Joe Biden is all a World War II tactic, government in exile, shadow governments, puppet states, continuity of operations, continuity of government, special operations, irregular warfare, unconventional warfare. It all forms that. Or, if I was being neutral, if I'm being the veteran I'm supposed to be, reading the laws and orders as I'm supposed to be, then it's either President Trump's a wartime president by laws and orders currently in place, or Joe Biden got surgery on his ear, got surgery on his chin, made his chin go from a Chevy Chase chin to a ball sack chin like old Peter Griffin on Family Guy. All right, he's either had all these magical surgeries done, and he's the greatest commander-in-chief in the history of the United States and the history of the world. It's one or the other. Now, again, laws and orders show that that's not true. But for people out there who just still want to remain in the mud hole, wallowing in the mud with the pigs, that's why they say you can wash a pig off, you can give a pig a bath. You can put lipstick on a pig, but the pig's going to run right back to the mud. All right, so either you're that Republican conservative who is a pig, all right, and you got a bath, all right, you got your little curl all done up, got your little bow on there, you little boy or little girl pig, right? Got your little pink bow if you're a female, little blue bow if you're a boy, right? We still operate in that world over here, all right, male and female, all right. You got you all pigged up. Right, got you some lipstick on you. All right, cute little pig. But guess what that little pig's ass gonna do? Run right back to the mud. So either you want to know or you don't. And that's the only option you have, because the laws and orders in place right now to make those National Guard active daily and the reserve components active daily, they put in place by a president. All right, and the only president who's done that was President Donald John Trump. And those orders that did that have been continued. But they're not in the Federal Register under proclamations or executive orders where they're supposed to be in a continuity, in a continuation order by the next president. They're not there. So why aren't they where they're supposed to be? If you go to 2017, President Trump continued an executive order by Obama. It's there. How come it's there? How come a continuity of one of the executive orders before him is there, but how come all the President Trumps aren't with Joe's? All right, so there's that. So it's either one or the other. You only have two options. Either President Trump is a wartime president by laws and orders, or Joe Biden is the most biblical, monumental, historical commander-in-chief known to man. Because the laws and orders show that the National Guard and reserve components are active daily. They're not out of their state jurisdictions just because they can. That's not how they operate. It's not how they function. Anybody who thinks that is an absolute ignorant fool. All right, they have no clue what they're talking about. All right, so it's one or the other. Which one is it? All right, so let's show one other little thing which ties this all in. So right now, if you went to X and a lot of Facebook pages, liberals are all yelling right now about the 14th Amendment, that President Trump is disqualified by the 14th Amendment, and he ain't fit to serve, and he committed treason on January the 6th, and they love the law when it fits their narrative. See, but what I'm trying to help you Republicans, conservatives, and patriots do is a lot of you out there look the same thing too. Now, only you know who you are. A lot of great patriots watch me. So I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about the ones that see this video later.
or when you share this to your friends and family, it's probably one of them who are having to hear that. But a lot of you Republicans, conservatives, and quote so-called patriots, a lot of you are only wanting it fit your narrative when you want it to fit your narrative, and you want it to fit your truth, and when you want it to fit your right. All right? What you call your truth. And that's where a lot of you are going wrong. I'm reading laws and orders that are currently invoked on a neutral setting that shows how the National Guard operate, how they function, how the Reserve operate, how they function, and you can see them daily out of their state jurisdictions and in it, in and out, and they're active daily on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Friday. It's not just the weekends, the National Guard, one weekend a month and 2 weeks active duty a year. No, it's every single day. So there's an order for that. And President Trump's orders are the ones running this whole show. All right? So in order for you not to look the same polar opposite as the liberals are looking right now, you must be on lawfully. So that's why I'm here. Right? That's what I do. So the liberals, right now, they are all ate up. They don't have a foundation